You don't know when is the next time you're going to get one of these days where someone shakes your hand and gives you a check, or you close a strategic deal with a strategic partner, whatever it is, or it just happens to be one of these awards that you get. You never know when the next time is. So therefore, all the other days is just no over the phone. No, I'm not interested in investing. No, we're not interested. No, you're too early. No, you're pre-revenue. No, is dental is not our
No
vertical
is regular every
on
day.
a daily basis.
Yeah. So my understanding is that you are essentially an engineer, but you've taken all of these your engineering background and you've delved into the world of business, and you've done it at pretty large scale. Is that a correct understanding?
That is a very accurate understanding, yes.
And then where are you from? Where were you born?
I was born in Tehran, Iran,
Yeah,
and I grew up in Belgium. So I was there for 16 years, and then I got a double scholarship program, came to the US in 2000.
incredible. Welcome. How's life these days? How are things progressing? Do you feel satisfied where you're at, and where do you want to go? What's going on?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show, Dr. I, and I've been looking forward to this discussion. Things are going extremely fast, as you may imagine, and of course, AI doesn't make things any slower. It automates things and whatnot, and if used properly, it can certainly help startups like ours. Where we are right now, we're a seed stage company, and I'm the founder and CEO of Finally Quiet, and we're going at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and trying to create value for the company and for our stakeholders as we go, to be able to help the sooner the better these people who are suffering from dental noise. And then so we can certainly do a deeper dive on those specific topics, but that's exactly where we are. So we're laser focused on our upcoming milestones, and we try to remain as nimble and optimal as possible on a daily basis.
How did you come across the idea of raising capital and creating these companies? Because this is not something that the public is usually exposed to.
Sure. So we operated in stealth mode actually under an LLC, a California LLC, or limited liability company, for the past 11 years. It is only last year that we were done with the friends and family and pre-seed round and putting our own money and whatnot. We wanted to start getting involved with more serious entrepreneurs, including angel groups and micro VCs and venture capital. And to go after serious money like that, the terms have to be flexible enough, but also have enough tax benefits to those investors. And the state of Delaware and also Nevada offer to great extent those specific incentives. And so therefore, if we want to position ourselves in a good way before getting any kind of institutional checks, it is always preferred to, whether you convert your LLC to the C Corp or actually start a complete different entity, which is exactly what we did.
So, sir, how did you start getting into these more complicated nuances of finance? Like, as a young person in Belgium, I assume that you weren't taught, what
No,
a
nowhere
structure
near.
is. Yeah.
Uh, and so the financial savviness came when I actually came to the United States, and not even in school whatsoever. It was after I graduated. So 2007 was my last in engineering degree. And I started working, and you're clueless. You go to your boss and you ask, okay, how should I invest my 401k and whatnot, etc. And of course, they're not allowed to give you any kind of financial advice and this and that. And they tell you, that's how it works. Watch this video. At the time it was YouTube. And watch this, watch that, and then talk to your accountant, maybe get a financial advisor. And then so that's where some of the savviness started, those wheels that have never turned for the first time start turning. But is really when I started getting into the world of startups in the med devices that really opened my eye, by having great mentors and having people who are in the C-suite who always had open door policies. And I would go and say, okay, how do you set up? And what was the mistake? And what did you like about this specific investor that came in lately? And what were the mistakes of the past? And what are the debt skeletons of the company? And then so they were, by asking simply curious questions. And people are there to answer. You'll be surprised, how many people are very willing to either mentor you or actually give you an honest opinion or an answer.
Yeah.
And that's where the curiosity, really grew up, but where the definite thing changed is when I got my executive MBA from UCI here at UC Irvine. That really opened my eyes because, they explain you from soup to nuts, financial models, this, that, and whatnot. And when you combine that with your experience, now being in the C-suite of startups, specifically in health tech and medical devices, then of course you want to operate, you have to know like all these things, by heart. And of course you sit down with these very fancy attorneys, they explain you, tax attorneys, they talk to you, they educate you on the various, and because you have to make decisions and decisions that you own. And then so there you better, understand them very deeply. And of course you buy books and you start reading them, you talk to a few other folks. And so that's how you kind of start creating a tribal knowledge of various tax implications, financial decisions, and of course company structures that work best, for what you need to.
And what would you say is your superpower when it comes to being in the management team? Like, when did you figure out, first of all, what is it, right? What role do you enjoy playing the most? And second of all, when did you figure out that was the thing that you really are good at doing?
So what I'm really, really good at doing is to architect system of systems that basically fill what the need of the market is. And once that architecture is completely drawn, hire the best team to implement it and execute on it. That is something that, I've done multiple times in a very successful way. And of course, we can talk about all the dead skeletons and all the lessons learned and all the, what do you call it? Injuries I have on my back when I open my shirt, and thanks to those mistakes. I think those are the ones that really make a character of a person, but also the strength of your next project or your next company you take on.
So it's necessary. So, and then when you find out that, okay, fine, I actually have the eye to recruit the right person. Like I actually have, it's the intuition, right? Like you go through 50, 100 people, and then you start understanding, okay, this person actually has the IQ to execute on this task. When did you finally grasp that? Or are you still kind of, is it still an art form?
So I've hired, over 400, people in my career, and one of the proudest things is that is with less than 5% attrition.
Incredible.
And thank you. And that comes from holding the highest standards of not only of being ethical, quality of the delivery, but also care for those individuals. When you combine these three, then it becomes out as someone who trusts others, someone who questions very hard, but at the end of the day there's no malintent. There's always with the focus of all of our eyes in the same direction. So it's never personal. And then I always try to also help them when they struggle. If they have any kind of issues, finding another resource, finding a contractor, finding whatever it is, I try to be there for them, very rapidly. And that usually what happens is that it creates a word of trust between them and I, and they know that I will take a bullet, for them no matter what happens.
Brilliant.
And then so that's where, you start seeing the attrition, lowering, because once they trust you, they know that you're not going to get backstabbed, you're not going to get fired, you're not going to get this, you're not going to that. And you also laser define what the path to success is. And what I usually do for that is that I'll tell them, okay, your first week, if by Friday we can get this done, that'll be amazing. And imagine this is the first time on the job. They look at the profile of the guy, they get intimidated, whatnot, the results, this and that. But if I know by Friday I deliver this, let's say Peman or whoever, Henry, whatever, is going to be happy, then right there, when I go home, I don't need to get super excited or get my wife, on anxiety pills or whatnot, or my husband, because I know the recipe to success with this company. And then it's just a matter of repeating that. And then so next month we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And then you monitor them and you genuinely care, and you always open your door, say, hey, if you have any questions, come back to us. And that has been extremely, efficient at creating that trust so that they can kind of expand their wings and start really shining and show what their secret weapons are and deploy them at the company, really.
Excellent. So there's this concept of you can't necessarily lift the buckets and build the pipe at the same time, right? So like when you're in the job, doing the job, it's very hard to think about, to zoom out on the 10,000 feet from that perspective and see, okay, strategically, this is where we're going. Was there a point in your career where you were lifting the buckets and you were also managing the building of the pipes? Or...
Oh yeah. And so before that skill, that superpower you're talking about became what I'm talking about, I was doing interventions on multi-million-dollar companies that had major failures. So they would get me at a hired gun to come in and clean up the house. You have stakeholders unhappy, 12 programs, 7 of them being behind, 30, 40, $50 million in losses. And I would come in and literally completely revamp the entire structure of the human resources, completely reset the clock with the clients, work with the executive team and the middle management to look at exactly who, or do we have the right people on board, do we have the right people on the bus, etc. And then finally turn that around and deliver. And we did that. It took us 2.5 years, an entire team of 125 people, but blood, sweat, whatever you want to call it, every single one of those programs got delivered to manufacturing and made it to market. Now, how, did we have some brain cells that died in the process or not? Yes. Did we have all-nighters? Yes. Did we sleep at our desk? Yes. But you have to also make it the issue. Do you want to be in the world of startups and make a true difference, or you want to work for corporate America, have a happy life, and you have a paycheck that is always guaranteed, whatnot? That's not me. I'm always for more excitement, more room for growth, because the bigger the challenge, the bigger the chance for growth is going to be for you.
Absolutely.
So I think one incident, when I was 9 years old, that really made a difference is during the Iran-Iraq war. So there were 6 rockets, that hit our neighborhood. And so you see this huge light that is like through thick curtains of my parents' bedroom, coming through. And then you don't realize what it is. It's like a sustained flash like that. And you're like, why doesn't it go away? And then the shockwave came. And then so it threw me against the wall. And before I passed out, I realized the difference in speed. I realized the speed of light versus, the speed of sound that came. And believe it or not, that's actually how we actually remove the bone conducted sound of the drill in the jaw of the patient. So that event when I was 9 years old turned into a patented technology that is the first in human history to remove the drill and the ultrasonic sound in the jaw of the patient. Nice. So don't ask me how that came, but but what that, from a character perspective, what that event created in my brain, it was a second, chance to life.
Yeah.
I basically died, and when I woke up a few minutes after that, that was my second chance to life. So that's why when people go out with me, they talk to me, whatnot, etc., they'll always see me smile, or when I'm at work, they see me super serious, dead on, working hard, because I truly enjoy it, because I got a second chance at it.
Yeah.
And every second of the day, you will see me being excited and creating quality. We don't, chop off work. We don't, try to do mediocre stuff. It doesn't go out until it's perfect. It is creating value because we take pride in what we do. And again, going back to because we were given a second chance at creating something unique.
Incredible.
So that's what, a little bit particular. So I wake up in the morning already like 100 amps. The needle is up there and super excited and ready, to bite at the day.
And necessarily a person like yourself consistently is thinking about efficiency, right? Like there's only 24 hours in the day. There's only so much time, and you have all these massive, massive goals to accomplish that really only probably you're allowed to know, right? Like the 70% of it you can't really give to everyone else. You kind of have to be like, okay, you stay right here. This is the track. So when it comes down to that, kind of the iceberg that you see above the water, and the stuff that's built in the water itself for leaders. How do you prioritize that time? How do you make that time to actually grow yourself and build that larger vision?
Yes. So number one, it goes back to hiring the best of the best. You know, we there will be an announcement later this year, maybe early next year, about the next executive we have just hired. That is going to be an earth-shattering news that's going to come out, you know, in the dental world. So that is, it starts with that, and then of course the trust. But going back to exactly how you make it efficient, I personally, assuming that we have hired the right resources, should never be making any other but the following three decisions. Number one, when I attend the meeting, that means I am there and I'm the only one who can close the deal. The only one. Otherwise, if it's like let's say a manufacturing supply chain, whatnot, etc., the head of quality and the head of operations should perfectly, you know, are qualified, you know, to take care of I don't need, as a CEO of the company, the highest, you know, dollars, and most importantly, the highest, you know, pounding, you know, hammer of the company be involved in such a meeting. Number two is when there needs to be a significant strategic decision to be made, and that cannot be made without me. And then the third one is to remove a roadblock. So if there is any roadblock that is out there that the executive leadership team is struggling with, or they have issues or whatnot, etc., because of the network that I have, and, you know, of course, with that, you know, come influence and whatnot, always for good causes, I would come in and do an intervention and try to say, okay, let me call this friend, that person, that, whether it's in the government, whether it's in, you know, local, you know, the folks, whether it's taxes or an attorney that they need, whatnot, etc. I would come in and then try to, you know, get an expert in as soon as possible so that we stop the bleed.
Incredible.
Outside of these three types of decisions, I should never be in a meeting. Never, ever, ever be in a meeting. Wow. And then my team knows that. And then that opens my calendar so that I can have, you know, the last time, you know, well, the U.S. Congressman Min, you know, was there, and then we received an award from them. I can attend an event to receive an award for, you know, the inventor of the year, or whatever he was. So those are some of the important things to attend, because they create value for the company. We honor and get humbled by this type of, you know, receptions that we attend. And it is also another opportunity to talk about our cause and then create awareness among the community. That versus, imagine I go back to a vendor meeting, you know, approve, you know, a supplier on our supplier list, you know.
It's a different level, and clearly you've earned that level, right? Like that's something that you had, I assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have had to learn, you have had to build your way up so that you were the person making those smaller decisions in the past. You know how to make those decisions, and then over time you were like, okay, now I know how to hire this person. Cardone Ventures calls it the model mimic master, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. At the beginning, you're in these meetings, you don't know, right? You're way over your head of everything, right? Yeah. I'm talking 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And then you still make mistakes on a daily basis. I'm not saying I'm not making mistakes, hopefully not, you know, $1 million mistakes, small ones, but you always have to be, you know, tuned to be willing to learn. But at the beginning, you're in this meeting and you see the global CEO of the company making decisions, talking about this, talking about that, bringing, you know, I don't know, culture shaping, you know, consultants in the company and this and that. You wonder what is going on. You're drinking out of a fire hose. You have no clue what is happening until you actually go through the training and the motions, and then you get hopefully an MBA, or you go through some of these educational programs to understand how the human operating system works at these levels.
Incredible. So, sir, I'm committed as a young leader to help augment really humanity's education. I think there's a lot of emotional and spiritual aspects of our education that we're necessarily going to have to tackle with how fast we're going. And I kind of want to be one of the champions of that in the West. What part of you, how much do you prioritize that part? How do you keep the family and the personal life and all of that stuff in check, right? What are your big rocks when you're thinking about laying out, for instance, 2026?
Yeah, so The big rocks is when I'm home, I'm home. That's a big pillar because, my wife has a dentist, and you may have heard the story. She's the one 12 years ago started this whole thing where she had the beginning of tinnitus, and it hasn't gone any better. That's 12 years ago. Since then, neck pain is, tendonitis is, shoulder pain, whatnot, etc. Patients have no idea. All they see is a very loving and caring and high quality provider. But once it's 5 o'clock and she comes home, it's a different picture, right? So I try to, of course, as a loving husband, to always, help her as much as possible, to give her her space, give her some time to detoxify after a day like that, or every single day like this. And we have twins, 4-year-old twins. So I spend time with them. I go downstairs, we play the piano together, we play games. I mean, it's just, it's a complete different thing. You become like a 2-year-old, and that's the way it's supposed to be. You're not a leader anymore. You're not a C-suite anymore. Forget about all that. You throw all that in the trash. It becomes like doing Persian barbecues on the grill, and then, do buckets of water on the floor. And so when I'm there, maybe 5-10 years ago, I wasn't able to do so, to have this huge division of my brain. And so what I use the 20-minute drive, from the office to home as creating that barrier.
Brilliant.
And before that, I used to continuously think about, what about this, what about that, and I get home and I get to do this email. No. During that car ride is when I detoxify. I mentally prepare myself to, lift up the CEO role, and then I put on the dad's hat. And that has been very hard for me to do, in the past. It took me 10 years until a few years ago. Really now it's sinking in, and I'm really enjoying the process of doing it, but also the time that I get to spend with them. And then once they go to bed, I make sure the mama is okay. Then back again is CEO, and then the emails start firing. And of course, I never, email at night. I always schedule them to go out at 8 o'clock in the morning, so that
Brilliant.
You always, never impede on the privacy of any of our team members.
Key piece of advice. Do not forget this. I'm going to steal that from you. As far as environments, so one of the largest piece of advice is for people that want to be productive is your environment necessarily impacts the way that you think. How much do you think it makes a difference to have, okay, in this location I play, in this location I'm inspiring myself, whatever, and in this location I'm this person? Is the geographic thing something that you've implemented in order to make your life more efficient, so that at least you have a physical thing that will tell your brain, okay, you need to turn into this person now?
So we have a corner in our master bedroom that is dedicated to an office space, and during the day, for instance, when I used to work from home, that was my space where I was, operating, whatnot. I think what I've noticed is that we got accepted to the Evo Nexus incubator here in Orange County. So we're going to have 2 years of, free office space, which is phenomenal for us.
Congratulations.
What I've noticed is, thank you very much. What I've noticed is that when I'm over there, I'm a lot more focused, because here you still have the children downstairs.
Yeah.
And you hear the noise and whatnot, etc. Not that is distracting, but the fact is that that you're tempted, to go, and that you're working from home. They know you're working from home, and then so you may still get interruptions and whatnot. When I'm, let's say, at Evo Nexus, you have 5-6 of the other founders of the other companies, part of the incubator, that are there. You're there from 8 to 5, whatever the time is laser focused on just entrepreneurship. And then you get investors that walk in, you have, strategics that walk in, you have the board of directors of Evo Nexus, guys from Bose, headphones, and Apple, Google, Qualcomm, Broadcom that walk in, and you wouldn't recognize. They're like in jeans with a cup of coffee, and hey, how you doing? Just like almost like a mini, Silicon Valley.
Wow.
And that really makes you the best out of you, the best of you come out while you're on premises. Whereas, at home, I may be still in my PJs, or I may be, having a shirt on, but with shorts on, whatnot, etc. that has to be legitimate, because it could be an investor, it could be a stakeholder, it could be a
Right.
strategic, it could be, you
Right.
don't know who's going to open the door. So just to put yourself in that specific space, I actually force myself to go to that environment, so that then I have to match the clothing, and of course I have to match the mentality of that environment.
And you got to shave, and you got to have a shower,
Yeah,
and you got the whole
exactly.
thing. Like, you got to be,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, 100%. Cool. Very, very cool. So would you recommend to young leaders, say for instance, people coming out of college, to have those two spaces, or do you think it's irrational when you're kind of early on in your career?
It depends on the discipline, and then what distractions you have at home. If you're self-disciplined and you don't have too much distraction at home, then that's absolutely fine. I've seen killers, working from home, and they're digging in and creating results. They're creating value on a daily basis. They create their own boards, with different tasks and everything. Yeah, go for it, as long as it's not distracting. You can focus for several hours and nobody interrupts you. You can take the break whenever you want it, and you're not broken or breaking by someone intervening, or a distraction that is at home.
One question that I wanted to ask before I dive into kind of more larger topics that might be interesting to the audience. As a CEO, first of all, what age did you become a CEO?
So when you look at my profile, yes, unofficially I was the CEO and founder of Finally Quiet on August 20th of 2013. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
But when you look at, when did we come out of stealth mode exactly? That was July 8th of 2024.
Yeah.
So when you follow my LinkedIn profile, officially, the first time I've turned legally a CEO to the eyes of the public and to the various jurisdictions and legal entities and whatnot is on July 8th of 2024. That's when I had my first time, And before that, I was Chief Technology Officer and Head of Operations.
But you did have, okay, fine. When is the first time you entered a C-suite role?
The C-suite role was at Bright Euro. So that's, I was employee number 2 at that company, Chief Technology Officer and Head of Operations. That was January 2nd of 2022.
2022. Okay, so this entire time, like the vast majority of your career so far, right, you have been training your skill in terms of seeing strategic decisions that need to be made and then executing on them. You've also been training, obviously, the efficiency with which you interact with people, your delegation skills, all of the stuff required to be exceptional. How do you manage whether or not people get your time, or how did you kind of build that thing that you were talking about? Okay, if this meeting doesn't have I'm not showing up, right? Like where did that start, and where should young leaders, if they're trying to get a little bit more time to develop themselves and not have so many distractions, what is kind of the first couple steps that we should be taking to allow ourselves a little bit more space?
So there's really 2 to 3 answers. So there are movies and documentaries. That's the lengthy version. There are books that are specific, to leadership and executive leadership and time efficiency and the dilemma of entrepreneurs and things like that I highly recommend. And then the third piece is to register to various channels of some of these leaders that you either envy, you want to become, whether it's Elon Musk, it's Steve Jobs, or whoever it is. We all have our own channels that we subscribe to. So I highly recommend you subscribing to who you aspire to be. And because those individuals are the ones that talk, Elon Musk has multiple, times talk about, if you don't add value to a meeting, I want you to out of that room. You don't need to even excuse yourself, right? Because he's pure signal, right? He's one of those very rare human beings that has zero noise, has 100%, signal. And that's why he can generate results like that and cultures of winning and delivering, solutions multiple times successively,
Right.
and in a successful fashion, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at some of these, he's speeches and whatnot, and he has channels, he has this and that, and I highly recommend folks, subscribing, is that he talks about these operational things that make a difference. But when you grab that and you combine it with a few books that you have read, or maybe half a dozen books that you have read, then you look at these documentaries on successful entrepreneurs, most of the time they talk about their miserable failures. And that's how big guys like that are so open about it, because they talk about their miserable failures. They talk about how they learn. Exactly the question you're asking. How did you learn? Is by making mistakes, is by wasting half of my day in meetings that didn't add anything, and you wanted to kill yourself. Then you had to excuse yourself 3 times to go to the bathroom or go to grab a coffee just to stay awake in those meetings, right? Now, some of them are mandatory. They're part of the product development lifecycle. You have to be physically present. You have to, sign under the design for your own function. But some of them, you simply don't have to be there. So if you don't have to be there and you sense it, you just want to steer a coffee and learn. If you're learning, great. But if you're not doing anything there, get out. You shouldn't be there. So that's really a process of making mistakes and wasting time until you realize how important your time is. You're missing deadlines. You're getting, kicked by your stakeholders, your investors, whatnot. And I'm telling you, after a couple of those discussions, you make sure that you are optimal and fully ironed.
They're like, what the hell are you doing with my money? Yeah, 100%. And thank you. That's actually one of my favorite answers that I've ever gotten in this podcast. You're essentially saying you figure out your own path. You have to go and find what it is that you're passionate about and who you want to be. And that's the management perspective, that everyone's going to be unique. Everyone's going to be different things, different ways to do things. Thank you for that. As far as, do you spend any time recruiting people that are coming out of college?
At the beginning, given that some of the sensitive tasks that we have right now, like for instance, we're working on the beta prototype. This is the first time in human history someone has ever created a device like that removes, bone conducted sound in the jaw.
Yeah.
During drilling and ultrasonic scaling.
Madness.
So would you give it to your best, engineering team that are all surgeons, senior level, principal level, whatnot? Or do you also throw in, a mix of rookies and people who still want to give it a chance or whatnot, right? I would say that, yes, we're open. Definitely during summertime, UCI is here, Fullerton is here, all these universities or whatnot, etc. Cal State, Long Beach, all great, colleges and universities, but we don't give them, of course, the very sensitive task. It will be a huge, like I was talking to another founder, they said that, we got, $3 million, whatever in funding, but because we couldn't afford all the heavy hitters, we hired a bunch of rookies. And then so when you hire your entire team, this is supposed to be your A team, and they don't have necessarily the experience of commercializing a medical device, then it could potentially be a disaster, right? So
very likely, very likely, yes.
So therefore, you have to be very cautious that it is not the majority of your mix. It is only very few people, and by law also, they need to be a burden on the company. They cannot create value. They have to be a burden. Like for instance, an intern or someone like that, they have to be a burden on the company, and the company has to honor that burden. You can't, hire them and then leave them like a bunch of, guys who have no parents, right? You have to nurture them. You have to dedicate some time to cultivate them, mentor them, create the trust relationship, and then so that they get real value out of the internship. Otherwise, it poorly reflects on the brand of the company. And number two, when they get graduated, that's the last company they want to get hired by.
Right. So let's talk about pipelines, because you've spent a tremendous amount of time, like you said, showing up to the events that matter the most. And obviously you've made the mistake of perhaps not attending the events and allowing someone else to go there when you should have been there yourself. How important is this networking thing? Like you clearly have this social soul about you, right? You like talking to people, you like engaging, you like questioning. But when did you realize you need to start collecting names? You need to really start hammering down your network and really get people to remember who you are.
Yeah. So before I became a CEO, I have helped support the raise of over $100 million. But the fact is that I did not raise $100 million by myself, because that's the role of the CEO. Okay. And when you become the CEO yourself, you realize that, yes, you helped close those deals. You brought those people to that. When the CEO brought them to the table, you responded from a technical perspective, operationally, whatnot, to all the questions they asked. And of course, that was significant in closing those deals. Without that, impossible. However, you did not generate those leads. You did not nurture those leads. You did not, date them and, dine and wine them and whatnot, etc. The CEO did, right? So to your point, when I really realized that the network that I have is purely operational and not necessarily strategic, is when I turned to become a CEO and we opened our first round of funding. And that's when I realized that in order to raise funds, now the relationship is very different from supporting a raise to now you generating those leads, because nobody knows who you are in that world. A few people know, but mostly operational people, yes, they know. If you want to commercialize a medical device, Peman is one of your go-to guys without any doubt. But from a fundraising perspective, being a CEO, specifically a first-time CEO, then you have to, you're going to set yourself for failure if you don't spread your wings and you go out. And because investors don't write checks, behind a computer.
They want to see you.
That firm handshake. You need to have the eye-to-eye contact. The trust level needs to be created because they want to know who they're investing in. The change in philosophy is that it became a lot more artistic than it became, formula-based or operational. You cannot quantify luck. You cannot quantify why two people are at an event or at a party that ends up, let's say, in a strategic partnership or an investment. And is also the other thing is that showing up at these various events so that, people know you, know what you're about. They have to hear at least, 6-7 times about you until they inquire about you. And then potentially then someone in the network then makes a warm introduction or whatnot. That's an art by itself, and is also consistency. That's why it is so important. We go back to the pillar of having enough time during the day or in the evening or sometimes on the weekends to be able to show up at these events. Some of them you may just be a few handshakes, it may be just a picture, it may be something that translates into a social post, and that's about it. You didn't go there for a check, you didn't go for anything, you went there to represent your company. But that can create the visual that, hey, these guys are constantly, signaling on social media, that creates basically a warm feeling of consistency that people can rely. At some point, it becomes a habit. If Peman doesn't post, every week or twice a week, he must be sick or out of the country or, something like that. Otherwise, people by now, over the past, since I accepted my CEO role, a founder and CEO role at Finally Quiet, they expect that Peman is going to have the highest quality of deliverables, momentum, various meetings, as a minimum Southern California, sometime Northern California. Last time was West Palm Beach in Florida. But you start kind of creating that pattern of trust and presence, constant. It doesn't need to be every day, but it is a constant pattern that people can rely on. And they can, of course, potentially at some point, trust you with their money, trust you with their strategic partnership, with their own company, whatever it is.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. That's advice that's a perspective that the vast majority of human beings on the planet will never have. And this is kind of where I want to take a step back and kind of look at the larger picture a little bit. When you have set these goals for yourself of becoming this powerful person that can actually move things, right? What was that urge inside of you that said, I want to be different than the vast majority? Like I want to actually be responsible. I want to have individual responsibility for moving this stuff forward. Like, did you have what brought that on?
First of all, Dr. Rai, I would like to congratulate you on your emotional intelligence level. It is really blowing me away, on this call, and I seriously mean it.
Thank you.
This is probably one of the toughest emotional intelligence questions someone has ever asked me. You don't necessarily are born a leader, and you're not even born with hundreds of the amount of emotional intelligence you should be having to be able to have a role like that. Those can be learned. Now, IQ is another thing. Some people are smarter than others. They have higher IQ, this and that. But emotional intelligence for me is something that grew with age. And when I met my wife, I was 32 years old. That was a certain level of increase because, to be with a doctor, a person like that of her background, someone of high standard, whatnot, you have to up your game. And I'm not afraid of, admitting on the call here that I married up for sure. So that's one level of rise in emotional intelligence that will allow me to make then later on that specific decision. The next thing was, I looked at some of the, executive leaders that I was reporting to. And of course, you always observe and see that, could that be done better? Could that be done more efficiently? Could we do this? Could we do that? And some of them are very receptive because they realize that, okay, if they don't listen to you, then you may either leave the company and work for someone else, or that you might as well, implement your vision at this company, right? And a lot of them allowed me to implement my vision, at least for the stuff that I'm responsible for. And then once you receive responsibility, you see the good that you're doing, then that's, at a manager level, then senior manager level, then director level, more and more, you start seeing that, my goodness, now I'm, managing 50 people, 100 people, and the budget that goes with it, tens of millions of dollars, and the impact you can have. Then you place a cochlear implant on the head of a baby. For the first time, the baby can hear, the voice of her mom, and everybody in the room start crying. That was the first moment for me, at Advanced Bionics, that I realized that, my goodness, this is the most beautiful field that I could have ever joined as a biomedical engineer, because I'm at the intersection of medicine and technology, and I can do good. Some people, we need both bandages and guns and whatnot. Some people go and build bombs. We made the decision, or at least I made the decision, to build, medical devices. It's a personal decision, right? So when you see that you can actually help humans with that, that by itself forces you to want to become really good at what you do. So that's the second step. Then the third step for me is, of course, we got married and etc. And when our babies were born, when our twins were born, all you think about is their future. And of course, there's the financial future, and we have a roof, we have a house, we have a modest house, we have 2 cars, this and that, great. So I'm not worried about them, becoming people on the street or whatnot. But what do you want them to see you as a role model? What kind of role model do you want them to be able to see through you? And I think that's the one thing that really I received a nudge in my own belly and saying that this is the time that you align, you wake up, and all the stuff that are negative in you, all the procrastinations, all the stuff that you had all the excuses in the world not to do, you're going to implement them through this founder and CEO role, not just for yourself and the better of humanity and the product that you're launching, but also having the one chance that God has given you to do what? So that your children can be proud of you, and then so you don't let them down 10 years, 15, 20 years. When they grow up, they're 20 years old, they can look up to their dad. They said, Dad did everything he could have done with the resources that he had to be where he is and to give us the life and the model that we want it to be.
Wow. Yeah, there's new depths that open up in life if I suppose we're looking. So all of my blessings to what you've accomplished and what you continue to accomplish. Seriously, it's
thank you, Doctor. I greatly appreciate your kind words.
It's such an inspiration, and really it's the reason that I do this, right? There's a strange synchronicity in life when you come across someone, you kind of have this conversation, and 2 human beings can kind of connect at this level.
If you don't mind, I'll provide just a short part B to that.
Yes, please.
This came with an excruciating amount of pain, and it's important for your audience to also know that entrepreneurship is one of the most unfair games you could ever imagine. That's why you need to say, you need to be passionate, you need to be consistent, you need to have perseverance, you need to have persistence, tenacity, grit, because the amount of pain, and is really because of the growth level, right? There's so much growth that the pain can be excruciating at times. And then so it's very important, with my wife, we have this kind of arrangement where, of course, she allows me to work on a project like this and whatnot, etc., while we also are financially responsible, and we care for our family, for whatever, credit cards, this and that. It has to be a tango. So you need to make sure that you have the perfect backing, whether you're married or not, you have a girlfriend or not, you have children or not, that you have that backing, because they're going to be 355 days that you want to cry, and there may be 10 days that you see me handshaking, the U.S. congressman means, hands on getting an award or whatnot. Those are some of those 5 to 10 days. And then so part of one of my other interviews, what I mentioned is that I do a snipping of these clips in my mind of those 10 days, and I replay them in loop in my mind on a daily basis.
Brilliant.
Last month. So that's where things matter, because it's important to know that, yes, great, now you have a title of founder and CEO. Yes, you have to do your networking, which was part of the A response. But now talking about the B response, imagine me making hundreds of thousands of dollars as an executive position at Bright Euro. Now we go separate ways. And how you no longer have that mountain, no longer medical insurance. You have a wife, 2 children, both of us, contractors, no longer full-time employees. What is going to happen to if we have to go to ER for children? What is going to happen to, all these things that you self-inflict? Nobody forced you. Don't ever dare taking a victim role. Nobody forced you to accept a founder and CEO.
And you can go back at any time. Go back. Yeah.
Exactly. That's that's fine. It's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. You can always go back home, and then you'll have the mountain. You have all the medical insurance. You get your bonuses for end of the year. Your paycheck to paycheck is going to be guaranteed.
Simple.
Your wife is not going to be worried. Your in-laws are going to probably respect you even more, because you have to realize also from a cultural perspective, where do we come from? Every person in my family and my wife's family are paycheck to paycheck people. And because that's how we were raised. My dad was, God rest in peace, was the only entrepreneur in our entire, family. And he was like the black duck or black swan or whatever.
Mine too, for the record.
That's right.
For years afterwards, all I get is, dude, he wasted all my fucking money. I'm like, come on.
So that's what it is.
Yeah.
And then so you have to realize that, yes, the title, great, well, yeah, you get the visibility, this and that, responsibility. Now you have the emotional intelligence. You want to create a dent in the industry and make a change or whatnot, great. But they come with significant sacrifices that people have to be ready to. And behind that smile that's why I have a lot of respect for entrepreneurs, female, male, doesn't matter. When they have that smile, behind that smile, there's a million cries that nobody is aware of.
And that's why it's such an honor to talk to someone like yourself, because you've been doing it at a level, by God, that people can't handle. And I try to explain this to people that I get the opportunity to delegate to. I'm like, guys, like, there's a level here. You're not quite there. I want you to get there, but I'm telling you, it's not easy. Like, you might not want to get there.
There's an emotional attachment to willing to do something that nobody else wants to do.
And it being of your creation. Of your
own creation, yeah. Yes. And it's funny because you say that, because you open my brain. So I'm also a professionally trained musician. So you open my brain, but you open the brain, half of it is a musician and half of it is a biomedical engineer.
Incredible.
And guess what? You know what Finally Quiet is audio. It is, music and noise cancellation and, technology like that. It's biomedical engineering. My wife is a dentist. She brought the problem to my attention. There we go. So you open my brain, finally quiet is a reflection exactly of what my brain is. We each have that in us. And for me, what it was just to stick with it for over 12 years. And I go back to what Einstein said. He said, I'm not necessarily smarter than others. I just stick with problems longer than others.
Brilliant. Brilliant. What is your advice for the peacetime? How do you prepare for the wartime? What are the things that I should be asking myself as a leader? Like, what are the things that I should be prioritizing as a leader to make sure that it's a little bit easier, that I can kind of, Brandon Dawson from Cardone Ventures, he says the thing that's going to screw you is the thing you have no idea about.
Yes. So number one thing is to do a very serious, in-depth post-mortem on 2025. So all your lessons learned, and when it comes to yourself, be as ruthless as you can. Do not forgive yourself, but at the same time, do not trash yourself either. Keep the same level of respect as if you're talking to yourself in the future. That is very important, but don't sugarcoat it. Don't let that sucker, get away because you procrastinated a month, you missed 2 meetings, and you show up late to this and that. No, this will never happen. You're going to write it down 20 times on one page. It will never happen again that I show up 2 minutes late or 5 minutes late to an investor meeting or a stakeholder meeting with another doctor, whatever. So that's the postmortem piece. Now, looking forward, what I like to think of is when you're playing really hard. And when you're resting, you're really, truly resting and partying. So if it's the week of, Christmas and New Year is a week that is for family and you guys going to cook together with your parents, this and that and whatnot, etc., make sure that your brain is fully rested and fully dedicated to that mode, because you will not be fully rested if you don't do it. If in the middle you go check emails, you do this, you do that,
So
then you take a couple of phone calls.
So tempting.
So that 1 week is sacred, and then so do not waste it, because you think you have 2026 is 2026. So let 2026 be where it is. Use that week to really relax, and your brain subconsciously, whether you want it or not, is thinking about 2026 already. And then once the time comes, you have a few days down, the festivities are done, this and that, then you can dedicate to some serious planning for 2026, setting the agenda of the meetings you want to attend, conferences you want to attend, people you would like to meet, whatnot, etc., and really hone in and then start delivering. You should have a short term and a midterm.
That's the key right there.
Short term and a midterm, right? You don't have a 3, maybe you have a 5-year goal, which is your long term, whatnot. Is always advisable to kind of review that plan as well, but deliver on your short and your middle, or mid plans ruthlessly. Do not get delayed, because you will lose self-respect, then you lose self-trust in abilities to be able to deliver on those on time, and then you start stinking like a rotten fish. And then when that happens, investors feel it, your strategic partners feel it, your audience, feels that it's no longer authentic, and then you start making decisions based on fear. That's the end of the personality or end of the business. So very important that it starts with yourself. And those short and midterm goals, they need to happen on the clock like a Swiss watch.
Thank you, sir. Do you go to conferences anymore?
Yes, very selectively. You have to realize that right now, at least where we are, there's an aura around, finally quiet. It took us a long time. It took us 12, 15 months to create this aura, at least in Southern California. We're the 2025 Healthcare Innovation of the Year. We are,
Incredible.
the topmost, fundable company in Southern California. We received the Golden Heart Award for Techco's Venture Network. We won the Octane High Tech Awards for Best, Technology Innovation of the Year. And lastly, we received this Visionary Inventor Award. So because of that, or thanks to that, introductions actually the arrows start, switching this way towards us. And we start seeing more and more people reaching out to us, whether they want to get involved, whether they want to invest or whatnot, etc. So that's very key, to us. This then says we can be selective about the events we would like to attend. But those are some of the questions we have to strategically ask. Do we, launch a campaign, for whatever, let's say Kickstarter. I'm just giving an example. Or do we, attend the conference down in San Diego? So those are the planning I mentioned, for 2026. That's where, I never make these decisions on my own. Our CDO or chief dental officer has to put in, chief marketing officer has to put in, all these individuals have to feed into that pipeline so that we vote. And then of course it goes to the board. Our board of directors has to vote on the agenda so that we then accept, the budget, for 2026, right? Yeah, normally board directors are previous, C-suite members. The more heavy hitter ones, the one that, help with fundraising and this and that, have done multiple exits on their own, have done multiple startups from zero to exit or zero to IPOs. That's the reason why you bring him in, because they will be a mentor, to the CEO, and also they supervise the execution. And some of them could be just operational people. Some of them could be, executive people who come from the top 5 or top 10, dental companies in the world. In our case,
Incredible.
which is the case, like the Dr. Pour Hamidi, who sits on the board with me. She comes, she's a chief clinical officer of Envista, right? So the largest global dental company. It doesn't get any better than that. So those are the type of individuals you want to surround yourself. And at the end of the day, they're the ones who know. They look at it and say, okay, what are you trying to achieve in 2026? Well, these are the things we want to do. Let's say we want to have a beta. They will make sure that the budget that you're presenting, that they vote on, reflects accordingly exactly what the goal is going to be. And then they will give you, of course, this is not enough, that's too much, you should allocate more here, you should allocate more that. And then with the CEO, then they agree, and then the CEO then becomes the person who executes on that specific plan and then budget, for the year.
I feel terrible. I feel terribly for CEOs because I am one. So we do all the damn work.
Again, you monitor quarterly, right? You monitor quarterly. You have your quarterly board, and of course, you can always access to them, ad hoc. But you typically, every 3 months, you have a board team, and then you want to make sure that you stay on track, because, board members usually are investors too. They are, in our case. So
as they should be, right?
Not necessarily board of advisors. A lot of people will say, oh, you should have your clinicians, put the money in. We have to carefully walk that path, because there can be a conflict of interest. If a clinician is coming to advertise for you and then you give them shares, that's one thing. But then if they also invest, that could also, poorly reflect on their opinion. Right? So you have to be very careful of how, that is being handled. But yeah, that's the role of the board of directors. And then of course, then the C-suite is there to execute on it.
As far as the company that you keep, in terms of the people, because when you're at this level, it's very hard to have just a normal conversation sometimes with people. Like they don't quite know what we're going through, what you're going through, kind of some of the issues, the stress, the pain that you were talking about. I believe that we kind of attract, over time, kind of these CEOs and founders and stuff. And then we have these conversations that are a little bit more nuanced, a little bit deeper, emotionally, I guess, more stimulating. Do you have like a mastermind or something that you've attended in your years, or some sort of group that you've created, this kind of internal, I guess, emotional catch, so that you have I guess the therapy that you need to keep on doing the things that you need to do?
So there are a few other CEOs that I'm in constant touch with, and we don't necessarily nag or play the victim on those calls with each other. It can be a few seconds of venting even, but usually it turns into a very constructive conversation, because we support each other, and we try to really support each other. Say, listen, this is where you are. Yes, it was a no, or it was, something went, didn't go the way you wanted to go. That's okay. Let me introduce you to this guy. Let me introduce you to this, manufacturer. Let me, at least allow me to give you another avenue, and then you can, you can correct this thing very rapidly. And that's typically the type of individuals. And then so we're very selective. It's like a self-selection, just like you said, that happens. So I have this, minor thing. In addition to that, I personally have, 5 executive coaches.
Brilliant.
So I've been very blessed by, and I've never had a coach before I got my executive MBA. So you can imagine for 40 something years in my entire life, never had a coach. All self-taught, all self-learned. And of course, you can also imagine how much faster I could have, achieved my results if I had a coach. And then so
retrospect makes sense. I will take this directly.
Yeah, so the sooner you get a coach in your life, etc., then they will tell you, hey, focus on this, read this, study there, stop, going to parties, stop doing this, stop doing that. And you may, even if you say you take half of what they say and you start implementing, then that's when those wheels, start spinning faster, whether it's financial sophistication, whether it's, how to executively lead and blah, 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 blah. That's really one key aspect.
The coaches, the executive coaches,
the coaches, etc. Those are super, super key because each of them has a very special role. One of them focuses on your weaknesses. They know you at the personal level. They know your internals, your guts, the way you think. Like it's like a yolk of a egg.
It's your soul.
Your soul, yeah. You pierce, with a little needle, the whole yolk, comes out. That's how close to your heart they know you.
Wow.
And some of them are more on the communications, how an executive, should be talking and speaking, and, depending on the type of crowd you're, dealing with and the type of person you're talking to. The tone that I have here is very different when I was, let's say, talking to Congressman Min.
I could only imagine.
Or I was talking to the president of the third biggest dental company in the world the other month.
Wow.
The tone is very different, right? So that's just, I have an executive coach just for communications, and another executive coach, on financials, and then how you would, present financials and present, things to the board and present, things. So each of them are different, and your own weaknesses. All you need to make sure, all you need to make sure, is to make sure that, your weaknesses and you recognize them first with yourself. And once you have acknowledged them, then how are you going to fix it? I'm going to fix it by reading. Sure, that gets you to some extent. I'm going to go and try to talk to other CEOs that are similar. But more importantly, you can either talk to a psychologist or you can talk to this to get out of that. But for me, it was really about operations and how do I fix myself? How do I not appear I don't know, too harsh in some of the meetings, or, not too relaxed when things are, burning. I'm just giving you some examples. But for every single one of those, make sure you address them. And for me, what worked is to have these sessions, with these executive coaches.
Boss, for the last question, what question should I have asked you that I didn't ask you?
The question I would say is why.
Do you mind answering that?
We answered it from an emotional perspective. And why do you self-inflict the role of a founder and a CEO and suffer until there's no tomorrow? We answered that piece. The second piece, for me, why? Because it started with my wife. And she's the person I love the most with my children, on this planet. Because she gave me everything, the better than I am, she got that better person out of me. And then so when you make a promise to someone, and yes, it was 12 years ago, and even sometimes you see her in her eyes, she's like, I see you driving this thing and not letting it go, and you're going to deliver, and you're getting results and this and that. And even her, she can have doubts because she doesn't have the vision that you have as a CEO. That promise, you can never let it down, because there are another 500,000 dental care providers like her just in the United States, and another 5 million globally. And there are 5.4 billion patients who can access this technology across the globe, who have access to basically oral care. Now, you combine that with the fact that there are over 60 diseases that are now directly linked to oral hygiene and systemic care and whatnot, some of them being terminal, given that the mouth is the biggest input to the human body. Hello, with a swab in the mouth. Now we detect cancers 20, 30 years down the road.
Hmm.
And then so dentistry, my friend, I'm here to tell you and to announce to everybody on the call that it's a $30 trillion business in the next 10 to 15 years. And we can prevent with dentistry many things that the other disciplines are just fixing down the road. Okay. And then so with that as an opportunity, you know, my selfish person, my little me and victim and whatnot, we have to tone it down. There's no nagging whatnot, because humanity needs our technology. Humanity needs people who are actually caring for people, that are making, you know, the life of care providers better and enhance the treatment experience for billions of patients on the planet, because all the other conditions are directly linked to the input of the body. So it's not just about me. As I would love to sleep in my bed, I would love to have a cafe croissant in the morning at my local bakery, but at some point your calling is much bigger than that. And you just can't let it go, because whether society recognizes or not, at some point this gift has to remain on earth before I leave it. And that's going to be my last gift to humanity.
Thank you.